Hey everyone, Florida Man here. It's been a while since I posted a video. I needed to post something and show you guys this before it heads out. I've been pretty busy lately. I'm apologizing. I haven't been staying up to date with a lot of stuff. There's a lot of videos I want to make. I've been recording a lot of stuff, but the problem is the projects I've been working on have not allowed me the time to kind of organize everything in a good way. I'm downstairs in my garage. I got stuff printing upstairs. I wish I was upstairs right now because you can probably see my breath. That guy's line, oh my gosh, it's already dropping. I had it up at 60, it was upstairs, so you guys get to see how cold it is in my garage. I don't usually work here unless I turn all the heaters on and extra stuff. But I wanted to showcase to you guys, what did I make? What have I been doing for the past couple of weeks? I haven't been able to go to the forge that often because I've been sick. I've been having to watch what I eat all the time, and I needed to be able to control that. So a lot of time I've been in the garage and I've been working on this guy. And I've been working on these guys. So I'm sending a care package to Big Mac. He's gonna get a couple items. And this is the one I wanna showcase to you guys in this video. This guy I had before I started communicating with Big Mac, I believe. It was a while ago. I bought this guy off of a Ukrainian website. He came pre-built. He was pre-built, he was ready to fly. I think it was around 550 bucks I got him for. Not too bad. But I had no idea what I wanted to do with it. So it kind of just sat in my garage for a while. And I had a couple ideas. One was just to make a really big, ski drone. Another option was maybe using this as a signal booster, putting a signal booster underneath. I've had some crazier ideas. I thought about, hey, it'd be cool. This guy probably has some good lift. Maybe we can put like a cargo bay underneath and we can see about putting little RVs and stuff like that. Whole bunch of different things I had in mind because this is like my next step in learning drone stuff. And as always, I forget, if you're doing something new, if you're doing something like this, start simple. And probably what I should have just done is just make a regular ski drone for a big hex, because that's what ended up what I'm doing, and I thought I could probably knock it out in a week. That was completely false. That is completely wrong. I was completely wrong, horribly wrong, so wrong. I feel bad. And I'm gonna talk to you guys about that. Why did this take me so long? What did I learn? All the cool new stuff, all the skill sets I had to learn to be able to make this here, right here. So, first off, like I said, this guy came pre-built. He was ready to fly. This guy was ready to fly. Everything was in there. It had a Python. I think I had the Python somewhere around here. Yeah, I got some of the bits here working still. It came with this. It had this guy for the VTX, and it also had this guy. It had this. This is its flight controller. This is its little mini flight controller. So it had a Python flight controller, and it had a Python 6-in-1 ESC, which is really cool, and that was a big problem. This is a big problem. As you can see, this is not an ordinary drone that we see people crash stuff into. This is a hex. It's a lot bigger. And one of the big obstacles when you have a bigger drone, more than 4, is the ESCs. ESCs are engine system controls. And generally, most drones, if you see any sort of drone flying, the 4-wing one, they're just going to have a 4-in-1 ESC. I didn't even know that was itself a term, that each one of these guys has their own ESCs. And so most drones, like a Speedy Bee has a 4-in-1 ESC. Some of these guys don't. Some of them have individual ones, and then you have to wire them directly differently. Whole different thing. But basically, it came pre-built, pre-assembled, everything was together, but it had this little guy for the FC, for the flight controller. Now, if you know anything about, drones, and drones here in Ukraine, and what a ski drone is, I'm using the word ski because I'm hoping the algorithm won't understand what skied means if I'm using it in English. But it's used to carry things and drop things, all right? Skied means to drop. You say drop me an email, or drop me a message, okay? So that's the term we use here in Ukraine. So it's a ski drone, okay? So this ski drone, it needs servos to function. This little guy, as you could probably imagine, does not have servo function. And so the first challenge I had was figuring out, let me get back here a little bit. So like I said earlier, this guy came pretty much ready to fly, but the problem was I needed to change a bunch of things. Once I told Mac, hey man, I got this drone, it's been sitting in my garage, I think it's big enough to carry your borscht container. This is Big Mac's borscht container. Look at this guy. It's quite a phallic borscht container. But yeah, it needed something big to carry that. I was like, all right, I got a hex drone. Let me outfit this hex drone to drop that borscht container. So I needed to make a lot of modifications from the base drone. This base drone that came at $550, basically the only thing I kept were the motors, the frame, and the Python ESC. Everything else I've changed. I've taken everything else out and I've changed it. And so basically I'm gonna go through that with you guys and why did this take me so long? So, sorry, getting all over the place. It's getting a little bit colder already. What are we down to? 46, yeah, it's freaking cold here in Ukraine. So anyway, let's get back at it. So for a ski drone, there's two big things every ski drone is going to need. One, it's going to need something to drop the borscht container. And two, it's going to need a camera that can look down to see where it's dropping that borscht container. So there's two options. One option, let's start with the camera side. There's two ways you can go about doing the camera thing. One option is you can have two cameras. You could have one camera for flying and one camera for dropping. I thought about that. I thought, oh, that'd be a cool skill to learn. Learn how to have multiple cameras on a drone. The problem was basically I would need, and this goes into a big thing, I would need to design two things to hold cameras. And already I made ski drones for Max, so I learned how to work with servos. I knew how servos worked, and I thought, well, you know, you're already having difficulties fixing these other problems. Why don't we just go with one camera? Economically, it would be a lot cheaper because also this guy flies at night as a thermal camera. So therefore, you know, one of the most expensive things on this guy is going to be the camera. So you have to double the camera. And I was like, dude, that's just like an extra 400 bucks. If I can just replace that 400 bucks with a $5 servo, all right, yeah, it's not worth it. So I needed a servo for the camera so it can look up and down. And then I also needed a servo for this guy down here, which is going to, whoop, there goes something. Don't worry, I don't need it. Which is that guy, that old stupid borscht container. So, big borscht container, holder, and a camera that moves. I need two servos. This guy does not support servos. And the challenge then was finding an FC that can support servos. Now, luckily, that is SpeedyBee. SpeedyBee, like it again, I was actually going to buy some Ukrainian FCs. I thought some Ukrainian FCs would be better for this, but then I found out that those FCs do not allow for 6 motors. SpeedyBee does. SpeedyBee allows for up to 8 motors, and you can put servo. SpeedyBee is just really good. It's very modular. I like it for that reason. So I decided to put in a SpeedyBee FC. Now, the next part was me learning. I'm not going to undo this guy. I'll get you some close-up videos, see if I can show you what's going on here. Having a different ESC and a different FC, two different brands, doesn't mean they're not incompatible. There were issues that popped up later, but they can't work as long as all of them wires are connected correctly. And that was my first big fucking mistake. I cut the wrong side of wires. And pro tip for anyone doing anything, learning drones or anything, never cut so close to like this little guy, the little guys that just clip in that you can't fix your problem. Never cut so close that you can't fix the problem on your own, because that's ended up what I did. I cut the wrong side. I was trying to record, I was trying to do all this stuff, and my brain had a dyslexic moment and I cut the wrong side. And when I cut the wrong side, I realized I fucked up. And it wasn't going to be an easy fix. That took me a couple days to figure out what to do. Maybe I can showcase to you guys exactly what I mean by here. So let's say we're talking about something like this guy here. So let's say, you know, this guy here, you see we have these cords here, and you see basically what I ended up doing, I didn't cut here. I cut all the way up here, and that was wrong. I needed to cut here to fix my mistake, because actually what I needed to do was cut the other side. There was like 2 sides of this. Maybe I have, oh yeah, like this guy. Here we go, perfect, beautiful example. Yeah, so look, we have 2 different sides, and basically I had an oops doops moment, and I just cut the wrong side, and I needed to cut this side. And then I needed to figure out how can I fix this. So I got to learn a lot about these guys. Sorry guys, they're just my name, words aren't hitting me right now. I forget what these guys are called, but I had to learn about these. I had to figure out where can I buy them online. I wasn't going to buy an entire other FC just to get one small wire component part. So that was a bit of a time learning about these guys, learning where can I buy them, how to differentiate. I ended up having to buy 2 separate ones that were kind of the same. There were small measurement differences. And luckily I got the ones that fit. And I got ones that didn't fit. I have like a stack of 8 now. I don't know what to do with them. I'll wait for next time I screw up a project maybe. But yeah, pretty much that was the first problem, getting the ESCs all put together and then get it in contact with the FC. Because I had to do, there's a lot of manual sort of like you can override stuff in the CLI and you can make it work. That was the first problem. And that's just stuff I think I knew I was going to have to do. And I figured, all right, I can probably figure this out. The second problem and the biggest problem that took me the most time was designing the 3D parts to hold everything together here. This is honestly like a whole new skill set. That was a lot of time. A lot of my time was spent learning. A lot of time was learning how to do CAD design, learning how to use Blender. That's going to be a whole separate video about 3D printing. But in short, I spent days. Learning how to do stuff, learning how to modify, starting from scratch, and sometimes modifying other things. So let me give you guys an example. I think I brought my box down here. Did I bring my box? Yes, I did. I was good. All right. So, for example, we got this guy here. I did not design this. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I did not design this. There are volunteers out there. There are volunteers of many different fields, and some of them just design 3D parts for the military. This is one of them. This is a ski, contraption. This thing holds borscht containers, and it allows you to drop them through servos. It's really cool, really innovative. A friend of mine, I used to have to just go through the grapevine to find people to send these to me. Eventually, I got in contact with the right people. They sent me a file for one of these, so now I have it, so I can print it myself. I can print the parts. Great. But the problem is, if you can probably tell, fucker don't fit. All right? So I had to redesign this. I had to expand it. I had to make it bigger. On one hand, it's nice that I had the file and I could go into Blender and move stuff around. I probably spent 4 days learning how to modify like a pre-existing STL file. STL files are the files that you use for like 3D geometry that you use for Blender, or not for CAD. I mean, it turns into a CAD. CAD can go into 3D. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. But basically, I spent 4 days trying to modify this to turn it into this. All right. A couple things about this. I'll talk more about these guys in my 3D project video. Inside, you say "ne dalla produju." Ne dalla produju. Ne dalla produju means not for sale. These items are not for sale. You cannot find these on the market. These are not on the market. They're not for sale. These are volunteer efforts. And I respect that. So you won't find me trying to sell these or make my modification available for anything. It's the exact same thing. And I believe if I turn this guy over, I have it in English. There we go. Whoop. Let's hopefully it gets in focus. Not for sale, bro. So this item is not for sale. These items are not for sale. If I get another request for Mac, I'll just print this guy out and same thing. So that was my biggest thing I needed to make for this project, was learning how to make this bigger to hold something like that. On top of that, another thing here is that, as you can see, this guy needs to be attached to this. How do we do that? This is a fun part. This is a part I'm really satisfied with myself with. I pretty much just had to figure it out, engineer what to do. I've never done this before. I had to design parts. Pretty much, I had to grab this guy here, take a bunch of measurements of this guy, play around in Blender, play around in Pruso Printer, figure out why sometimes it wasn't compiling correctly. Also, this part is from these guys too. So I did not make this cool part. This is from them. I just modified it more. I make a couple modifications to this the way I like it. But regardless, I needed to make something to hold that guy. Yet again, that took me a couple days. And you'd be surprised how much plastic you can waste. Because basically I'd make like a measurement, a couple measurements, I'd try it. One part wasn't tight enough, so I'd go back, do it again. Then I could progress to the next stage and find out, oh, this other part's not too good, I need to redo this part. I ended up probably printing like 7 of these guys, trying to figure out what to do. And think about this too, when you print these guys, printing is not fast. It probably takes around an hour to 2 hours. I think it probably takes an hour and a half to print something like this. For this guy, this is a 3-hour project. So when I had to print multiple of these to get this guy right, you know, that's like a day. That's just a day of me kind of babysitting, making sure it's, you know, everything's looking right. I can work on some other projects or just learn some stuff, but still it's time consuming. It's really time consuming. So those were 2 big 3D parts I needed to make on my own. Another one I needed to make was, of course, the camera holder. Now I already made this camera holder, as you can see there. I already made one of those beforehand. I made those for the other ski drones. That's no problem. I worked on those guys. I'm going to stand up and down, guys, to try and get my blood moving here. So only small modification I needed to make was to make it compatible to tie in with these guys. So if you see here, I got 2 screws. I just put 2 little screw holes on the top for the pillars. And at the bottom, and this is always great, this is like the greatest engineer hack ever. If you can't figure something out and like, you know, you don't have good screw holes, you can't figure what to do, use zip ties. This bottom guy here, he's held in by zip ties. And guess what? It ain't moving, all right? That's nice and sturdy. It's good. It's nice and sturdy. So, sometimes you just gotta use zip ties. Figuring that out, that wasn't taking me too long. The next one, this was a big one for me. These legs. I designed these legs. Probably some engineers could already tell there's probably certain problems with these legs. I've been told these guys need to connect with each other because they're going to bend out. That was something I'm probably going to still do. I might just get some PCP pipes, tie them together, boom, just a real quick solution to that because it takes about 4 hours or 3 hours to print these guys. Yet again, I needed to learn a lot more. Different things, there's different types of plastics. This is like just a new world for me, learning all these new things. There's different types of plastics. You can probably tell, obviously, these are different colors, right? But they're made out of different material, and basically there's trade-offs. Think of like there's 2 main things, you know, there's flexibility and there's like sturdiness, making something that's very sturdy, like very rigid and flexible. There we go, flexible and then rigid. This guy is a PLA. PLAs, they're very rigid, they're very durable, you know, they don't bend, you can drop them, whatever. I mean, this is PLA plus, so it's a bit more durable and it's super cheap and eco-friendly. This is PETG. PETG is more flexible. As you can see here, it's got a little take. If I did that with this guy, this would snap. PLA is far more rigid. So, one hand, I needed to learn about how to print materials in a certain way to make them more durable. That was a whole other thing. If you look at these guys, I'll give you guys a close-up. There's a couple of ways I could have went about printing these. I could print straight up, because you know it's pretty much just a column. That would have been very easy in my regards. You know, it doesn't seem too hard. It's pretty flat. There's a small degree difference. There's a 5-degree difference at the bottom here to compensate. If you can kind of notice, the motors are kind of bent out a bit. So that's to compensate for that. But if you print straight up, the binding of the plastic is circular and very small, and when I did some tests, which I did multiple, it was very easy to break, especially in the center. It was very common that it would just snap, and I'd be like, well, there we go. It's not working. You know, this isn't sufficient. So then I learned, oh, I had to watch a bunch of YouTube videos about how to improve the integrity, the structural integrity, let's say, of 3D printed items. That's a whole other field again. I'll get into 3D printing, more of that stuff. But let's say the least, I think it takes 4 hours for me to print one of these guys. So I had to do multiple tests, and then I had to print 4 of them. You can see the time adds up here. So that was a big time sink. Second big time sink, well, not too big of a time sink, was working on the VTX holder. If you see here, I got some zip ties here. I had to design something to hold the VTX in place. basically, I needed stuff to hold stuff in place around here. So I had to design all this stuff on my own. And this is the sort of stuff I'm very grateful that I have the time here. I do have the time. I'm in a nice environment to learn. I can spend this time improving my skills and learning how to fix this stuff. The last bit here for 3D parts was for this guy. Originally he was just kind of dangling down in the center. Basically, my friend, he gave me a 90-degree elbow. With that 90-degree elbow, he's facing up. It's going to be a better connection now. But, the 90-degree elbow was just like free falling. It was obviously going to hit one of these guys. So I needed to design something here in the back to hold all that up. So, 3D parts, that was the biggest time sink of this guy ever. Second big time sink, and this is pretty much everything's complete, finished. I needed to get it reviewed by some people I really trust. Big thanks out to those guys who help and do a Those guys are awesome. They help stuff. Thank you so much. So I went to them, I had them review it, and I was hoping, because here's the second problem, a lot of FCs, if we look at like this drone here, the FCs and ESCs are face bottom. They're facing, or like they're at the bottom of the drone, right? They're at the bottom here, all right? You usually put the ESC, then you put the FC on top, and then you stack it up. This guy, when I got it, it was reversed. It was reversed. So if you see here at this little thing, that's the ESC. We have the ESC and then the flight controller going down. This is a horrible design. I didn't know how to remedy this design with still having my contraption at the bottom to drop borscht containers. So I kept it. I didn't change it. And it cost me many hours. Because once I went back, because I was hoping, I was praying, I should have sent this in a text message. I should have asked this guy, hey, is it possible to flip the FC? Because basically what I ended up doing, I just turned this guy upside down and I just, did my soldering and I flipped it back over and then I screwed it all in. The problem though, is that the FC was pretty much thinking that it's upside down constantly. Because when I popped up Betaflight, it constantly thought it was upside down. So I was like, is this a problem? He said, yes, that's going to be a problem. So I had to unscrew all this, and this is the biggest bitch of all. This was a bitch. This was a proper bitch, guys. I'm sorry for cursing here a bit. It's just, I gotta be honest. This is a bitch, dealing with these guys. You know a lot of time you do during building drones? It's screwing stuff. And I see this guy needs to be screwed in more. It's screwing, all right? It's screwing in and out. When I went by to get their advice on stuff, I had to disassemble this. I'm like, all right, sure, I get you. Disassemble it, get inside, flip the EFC, and then I had to, of course, because I had to flip the EFC, and there's a mess of wires in here, a complete mess of wires. I built one contraption in there to try to keep some of the wires tidy, but it's a mess of wires. Certain wires are getting in the way of other wires, so I had to kind of pull, tug here, there. Long story short, I think I ended up having to test this guy. So I took him apart, put him back together, fixed something else wasn't working. See that either a wire got misplaced, like took it out, it lost, it got snapped. So I had to reopen it again, get back in there, redo it, check, diagnose other problems, see if it was this or that. I had to cut open some stuff, and they're like, oh no, it's not that. I was going by, I was hoping that I would be there for 30 minutes, maybe an hour. That was an all day. That was an all day event for me. But that's how it is. You got to do it. You got to get the job done. So that was a whole day event of me figuring out, getting it to work with these guys. Eventually, it finally flew. It finally flew, and I was so thankful it was able to get off the ground. Now, there are some problems, though. One, the motors. We weren't, and this is not, I'm not the technical guy. I need to start watching more videos on this. Blue Jay, they wanted to update the ESCs. They wanted to make everything better, but it's incompatible because we're using a different FC. This is where we get some very technical stuff, and this is why I'm very happy that I have very technical people in this field, because this is where they started doing some like wizardry, computer hacking stuff that I was just watching. I was like, all right, I I kind of understand what's going on, but I don't really understand why, or what's this, or why does this key binding phrase need to be like this, or what does that phrase even mean? Very grateful. Still, they got it to work and it can fly now. So I think that's the end of my ramble. I need to go test fly this guy out in a field with these other 2 drones. And then I'm going to go to the forge where we got a PKM waiting for Max there. I'm going to work a bit, make some staples. And then tomorrow morning, all of this is going to go into a big box as a big present for Mac. And hopefully he can do some good with this stuff. All right. So that's the end of my ramble. I got more stuff coming out, guys. I'm really sorry. It's just, this took me a lot of time. The other guys took me a lot of time. I got other stuff planned ahead. It's good that I'm busy, but on the other hand, I feel bad that I kind of been very silent lately, but don't worry guys, I've been working and it's just been cold. I cannot work down here when it's cold like this. So that's the other time, converting my upstairs into a bit of a workshop. But yeah, that's it for me guys. Stay safe out there. Florida Man out.